In this video, you'll discover 7 storytelling techniques to move your story from this to that. Let's go. First technique, sell your story. Before you move into your actual story, say one sentence to get your listeners excited about the story. For example, last year, I had an experience that completely changed my outlook on life. Yesterday, I had the probably worst meeting of my entire life. This one sentence makes your listeners wonder. They're like, wait, what is that? What completely changed your life? What was that worst meeting? They want to know. They will listen to every word you say until they know the answer. Second technique, share the goals. Oftentimes when people share stories, they give tons of context, but mostly useless context. They're like, oh, it was a warm summer afternoon, birds were chirping, and I felt a slight breeze on my body. Don't do that. The better way is to share something interesting about the character. In this case, share what the character wants to accomplish, their goals. For example, I really wanted to finish that marathon. I wanted to prove to my kids that really anyone can do it. I needed that job offer. Without it, I'd have 3 months before the government would kick me out of this country. The moment you share the goals, your listeners will be on the sideline cheering. They're wondering, have you made it? They'll pay super close attention until they know if you've reached that goal. Third technique, throw in obstacles. The average storyteller spends way too much time on the good stuff. How great they did in that one situation, how incredible they felt after. Well, the more experienced storytellers, they share that as well, but they focus much more on the drama, on the physical or on the emotional challenges. They go deep into the struggle. For example, and about 1 week before the big run, I was out training and it was this dark and rainy day. I couldn't really see where I was stepping. And right then, this terrible thing happened. I think I stepped on this plastic thingy, slipped with my right foot, flew into the air and landed on my wrist. My manager walked up to me and said, "What the heck was that? You were all over the place. Terrible presentation." So by sharing the obstacles that stand in the way, you build an emotional connection with your audience. Technique 4, show the emotions. Emotions are absolutely crucial for any story. But what most people don't know is how to share the emotions correctly. Because most of us, they just tell the emotions. They say something like, I was disappointed, I was sad, I was happy. These descriptions, they're not visual. They don't create pictures in your listener's mind. So the better way, instead of telling the emotion, show the emotion. How does the body, the face change when experiencing the emotion of the story? For example, completely in shock, I got up, looked at my wrist. Immediately, all the color from my face was just gone. My wrist was covered in blood. Immediately, my heart started racing, my entire face turned red, and sweat just rushed down through every pore of my body. See? Much more visual. We can now see the scene in front of our eyes. Technique 5, share the thoughts. Another way to make any story more emotional is to share what the character was thinking during that crucial moment of the story. What were the hopes, the goals, the dreams, the fears in that moment? For example, I thought, fuck, how can this keep happening to me? In a few days I'm supposed to run, what should I do? Shit. I thought, oh man, this is bad. How am I gonna turn this around? My manager hates me right now. See, it's a tiny change, but it makes a big difference. I know when we speak, we often try to speak super smart, super sophisticated. But when you share your stories, please don't do that. Because our thoughts, they are not smart or sophisticated. They are raw, unfiltered. Oftentimes we're cursing. So give us the raw, unfiltered thoughts. That will make it much more interesting. Technique 6, add a time crunch. You can make any story immediately more interesting by adding a time constraint. Show what the character has way too little time to complete this huge task. For example, the marathon was in 3 days and I had never run more than 10 kilometers in my life. How am I supposed to do that? I had 2 hours to produce a 100-slide presentation. That presentation would be sent to the CEO. Sharing that time constraint immediately increases the tension. It makes your story much more interesting to listen to. Technique 7, share the dialogue. Share the exact words that one of the characters said in that crucial moment of the story. It doesn't have to be this full-blown conversation going back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't have to be. Just one sentence can be enough to bring your listeners into the story. For example, as I was sitting on that wet floor, I got a call from my sister. After she listened to me cry for a little bit, she said something so freaking profound. Philip, this is the moment that you were training for. This is what you wanted. Embrace it. 3 weeks later, my boss walked up to me, patted me on my shoulder and said, "Hey, I don't know how you pulled that off, but yeah, I'm impressed. I'm honored to say that I want to extend your contract." Sharing that dialogue brings us into the visual moment of the story. It's a simple way to make any story much more interesting. Give them a try. Take any of your stories and try these techniques. Even if you just add one of them, your story will already move much closer to this. But hey, for those techniques to work, you also need to have the right foundation in place. You need to have a good structure. For that, you may want to check out this next video, in which I share a simple 4-step story structure. Enjoy.